So our speakers today, I'm Christina Fan. I'm part of the Yammer platform team. My colleague Ryan Brostad is also part of the Yammer platform team. Brian Davis will be here today to do a deep dive from the engineering team on the APIs and how to use the platform. And of course, we have Dave from Trek as well to give us a little bit of a sample of how he's used the Yammer platform at his organization. What we're going to cover today are a wide number of things. We're definitely going to want to get a feel for the audience to see, what we want to focus on. We want to focus most of our time on Q&A to make sure that we get your questions answered. But to just give a high-level review of what we're going to be covering, number one, why build with Yammer? The Yammer platform offers many different values, and we want to go through that briefly so that you know what the profits and the benefits are of using the Yammer platform. Some integration 101, so just a high-level review of what integrating with Yammer actually means. The platform components, so what tools and components are available to you to extend your Yammer platform. And a technical deep dive to dive deep into some of the APIs that are most popularly used on the platform and how you can actually see some use cases of that in other organizations. So before we get started, we just want to get a quick feel for the room. So how many of you are currently Yammer users? Great. OK, that's a great sign. How many of you are Yammer partners? And by partners, I mean working to, with several other Yammer customers potentially to help build integrations, extensions for their networks. Any partners in the room? OK, great. And how many of you have actually built a Yammer application before? All right. How many of you have actually used any of the Yammer APIs or extensions before? OK, great. Well, we'll definitely want to, again, spend a lot of time on the Q&A just because we know a lot of the questions are going to be pretty specific here. But we'll just start again with that high-level review of what you can get yourself into using the Yammer platform. Some of our key takeaways today are going to be, most of all, of course, exposure on how to start building a Yammer app. So for those of you who haven't done one before, we're going to do some deep dives into how you can use that platform and also maybe give you some examples that maybe you haven't used before and just show you what some of our most popular uses of the Yammer platform are. We're going to talk about the developer resources that you may or may not already be aware of. We did recently release a new Yammer developer site, so we want to go into detail with you about how to use it and what are some of the resources available there. How building Yammer can deeply connect your org. So a lot of folks are not fully aware of some of the extensions that we have on our platform and how that can really make your Yammer network a little bit more connected, extend its features out, and really just get the most value out of your Yammer network possible. Finally, how sign-in with Yammer is the key to easy user onboarding. We want to walk you through what a really strong OAuth 2 process looks like and how you can really get the most benefit out of that for you and your entire network. So why build with Yammer? We meet with partners, with developers all the time, and there's several benefits to the Yammer platform and how you can really get the most value out of it. So with identity, easily connecting users in your org. With identity, you can use the OAuth 2 flow with the Yammer platform to easily connect your users to the apps and extensions that you're building. So when that user does that one-click frictionless login with their Yammer credentials, you instantly have access to their APIs and their data that you can use to build your applications and extend their usage of the Yammer platform. With that, too, also is growth. So the Yammer platform and the Yammer tool itself, we have over 12 million users right now on Yammer. And so if you're trying to build an app to get more visibility from other customers, if you're trying to make sure that your app can get in front of other enterprise users, Yammer's a great space to do that. We have a Yammer app directory with over 100 applications right now. It's growing every day, and it's a great place, again, to grow your app's visibility and get in front of more people if that's what you're trying to do. So engagement. Some of the things that Yammer applications can do with the Yammer platform are drive engagement in the Yammer network. And how we can do this is by sending data into a Yammer network and creating a more engaging experience for users. So when users log in, they are not just seeing data from within the network, but actually seeing data pulled in from various applications, whether it's through the Open Graph activity ticker or Open Graph objects that are sent directly to the feed or posted to the feed by users. And of course, social. Yammer is an enterprise social tool, and again, it looks like everybody here is a Yammer user, so you guys are very familiar with what Yammer can do. But any kind of content that you want to socialize within an enterprise organization, Yammer's a great way to do that. If you want to have a conversation around something and make it more interactive and collaborative, Yammer is a tool that allows you to do that. So whether it's using Yammer Embed to embed Yammer feeds onto another tool, or whether it's sending your data into Yammer so that people can talk about it and have conversations about it and share it with their team members, Yammer is a great tool to really get that social value out of the platform. So the next thing that we're going to do now is talk a little bit about Integration 101 and what some of the high-level components of the Yammer platform are. I'll pass it over to my teammate, Ryan.
Thank you, Christina. All right, so we're just going to go over a few high-level considerations you need to think about when developing on the Yammer platform. So first of all, there are really two types of applications that you can develop. You have your local app or your global app. For local apps, there's various benefits to creating this type of application. You can have kind of full control of the app. The accessibility is only for your users within your network, so you can maintain that privacy control in the data exchange that comes across that application. The setup is pretty simplistic. You go through our standard registration process, write your app, and then it's listed within your app directories, your private network's app directory, for access to all the users within your network. The second application type is, of course, a global application. And this is more applicable to some of the partners in the room, and there were probably 5 or 6 of you guys that raised your hand early on. A few benefits that Christina covered at a high level, but this gives your application accessibility to our over 14 million users through our app directory. So really a great way to promote that experience across all the networks within the Yammer ecosystem. And so all the social features that come with the platform is a great way for those people to engage within your app to really complement that Yammer experience. The registration process is similar to the local, only you bring it a step further in branding your application. Typically, a partner will set up some form of web landing page and submit the application for the Yammer team to approve. It's then rolled out to the global Yammer app directory where they can start engaging all the users within Yammer. Now, a little bit more on users. Some of you guys may know this already, but there are basically 3 different user types, 2 of which are most important to building an application. At the very low level, you have the standard user. Standard users can read and post messages within Yammer. Next, you have the admin. The network admin basically has the same user privileges as a standard user, only that they have limited access to the control panel as well. And the most important is that top-level admin, which is the verified admin, that has full access to the control panel. They're able to gain access to all of the data within the network. That's inclusive of the data export API. They're also able to impersonate users, delete messages, things of that nature. When you're building an application on a global perspective and you want to use kind of the full set of APIs, it's required that you are a verified admin. So, moving on, I want to talk a little bit about some of the platform components, just at a high level so you guys can get a picture of what you're working with for the Yammer platform. So once again, you have to think about whether you want to publish your application or locally or globally. And with that, there's a number of tools within the Yammer platform set that you can leverage. So from Yammer Embed to data export, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive here in what each of these are and how they function. So this is Yammer Embed. It's basically a simple application that allows you to post a feed within your application. It's just a few lines of JavaScript that enables users to send messages, reply, share within that feed. And you can toggle that feed to a few different options. You can set up a group feed. You can set up a My feed, Open Graph feed, or a user feed. So this is a pretty popular tool that's used fairly widely. The next platform set here is also a very, very, very popular component. It is our Sign In with the Yammer button. So this is a great way to help really create a nice onboarding experience for your users to your application. Really how it works is it connects your app to Yammer with user credentials. And the standard authorization for this is OAuth 2. Similarly, with many other platforms, there's a little bit of delay here, a little clicker. There we go. We have a REST API. So with the REST API, we have a variety of endpoints that gives you access to messages information, groups data, users, and network data. Once you've set up authorization for your application, you can then start writing user activity leveraging our Open Graph protocol. So our Open Graph protocol, something that you may be familiar with, but it's a very simple protocol that allows users to have an activity on some form of an object. So the actions or similar actions that we recognize from users could be deleting an object or creating an object. An object option could be a CRM record or a calendar invite, something of that nature. So Brian's actually going to dig a little bit deeper into the REST API and kind of give you guys a good understanding of how that works. For knowledge, we have a number of SDKs within our platform as well that you can use, from Python, iOS. JavaScript is probably the most widely used and most mature, but just want to let you guys know that that is available on the developer site. And the fifth and last component of the Yammer platform is our data export API. So this is also a REST API, but a little more robust. I mentioned that you have to be a verified admin in order to leverage this API. But really what it does is it gives you kind of full access to all the data within your network. So this includes user information, all messages, all your files, groups, networks. It's kind of a full dump that you can take that data and use that how you like within your application. So next, I want to move on to just give you guys an idea of some of the applications that have been created, kind of get the creative juices flowing, or some examples that are being used right now. So the first one, we have a global application. It's called FaceGame. FaceGame is a pretty simple application that helps your users basically put a name to a face. How it works, once that user authenticates into the application, it rolls up a small game. And within a allotted time, that user then has to pick what name that is for the picture that's displayed and gets points associated for the right number of connections over the course of that time. It's a great way to kind of socialize. You can then share that information and invite other users to play the game. It's a great way to kind of understand and help users learn people that they work with every day. Another global application that we offer that's pretty widely used with many of our customers is Feedfall. So this is a display application that is used either at events like this or maybe around the office. Trek actually uses Feedfall and has monitors around the office to help users kind of get that knowledge persistence of what's happening within their Yammer network. So kind of a good way to create that general awareness of conversations or the chat that's going on within Yammer. And with that, I want to actually pass it off to Trek because they've been doing some really cool stuff leveraging our platform. So I'd like to invite Dave up to the stage. Give him a round of applause here. All right. All right, all right. You didn't see that coming, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, all right.
It's all good. Thank you. How we doing, guys? Just get situated here. My name is David Peterson. I work at Trek Bicycles. I'm the Enterprise Collaboration Manager. What I'm going to show you today is a couple screenshots from our Yammer network. Let's see here. There we go. I'm going to hit 8 for me. There we go. Cool. Technical difficulties. Okay. So at Trek, North America's largest bicycle manufacturer, sell in 90 countries, love the world over. But we use Yammer. We really love Yammer. So let's talk about some of the integrations we've written. One of them is called Yammer Doodle. You got to love when developers name apps. Yammer Doodle started when I was actually also managing the help desk. And I wanted an easy way for users to get a hold of the help desk. And I had this notion that if you added hashtag helpdesk in line, it would then automatically forward a ticket to the help desk system. So we see here Chris doesn't seem to have access to his server, needs to get access to that. So he added hashtag helpdesk inline. Yammer is running on a Azure web job, and it's continuously running. Sees that hashtag, says, oh, great, cool. Let's send you a message to the help desk. So you see Autobot here responded with message forwarded to the help desk. So that created a ticket in the help desk system. Our help desk went and got him the access he needed. And then we went back and we responded in person. The whole idea is, we want to make it more personable and show that we're responding as fast as we can. So that was kind of like the early beginnings of Yammer. But we have a pretty large developer community within Trek itself. And we have this notion of a support developer during our sprints. So, and we would find, we'd run into issues in the middle of the sprint, and so we decided to create a support developer. So their sole goal during the sprint is to support the application. So we see here Patty is seeing an issue, and she tags it with hashtag Dexter support dev. Dexter is our B2B portal. Same idea here, slightly different than the help desk. So we see that it mentioned Monica, okay? So what happens here is the support dev will sign up, so to speak. So and I'll show you in the next screen here. She signs up, and she's the support dev for that sprint. When someone tags it with support dev, it'll then mention Monica. So the idea here is that I don't have to remember who the support dev is. I can just say hashtag Dexter support dev, and Yammerdoodle will then go see, okay, it's Monica's turn, or it's John's turn, or it's James' turn, and it will then mention that person. That way, the support dev just has to watch their inbox. They don't have to constantly monitor feeds and stuff. They just watch their inbox, and then the users don't have to remember who's the support dev this week, right? So last thing with Yammerdoodle is the hashtag support dev dash my turn. So you can actually sign up. You can say, okay, hey, it's my turn to be the support dev, and mention me when anybody tags it with support dev. So we have another development team called Ascend. Ascend's a point of sale software that we write. So Amar signed up here. Looks like on Wednesday, he'll be the support developer for Sprint 132, and then he tags it with my turn, and then Autobot recognizes, hey, Amar, cool, you're the support dev. So next time someone mentions the support dev, you'll get notified. So that's Yammerdoodle. The other one that we wrote was our change control list. So we had a list in SharePoint that, we had change controls, and they were static change controls, and we really weren't having conversations. Sometimes they'd get emailed out, from a distribution list, and no one really tracked it, and then you'd end up with all these threads in email, and it was really complicated to keep track of changes. So we wrote an app that would then throw a message out here to this group, and then now we're matching structured data with conversations, and we're making much more social. And plus, it's all been memorialized, and we could see it, and we're not emailing threads around and CCs and who's on first and that sort of thing. So that's been a big game changer for us, because we've been able to streamline our change control process, and it's made it very easier to keep track of things and who's doing what and when. No more Wild West days. It's good stuff there. So I only have a few minutes, but the other integration that I won't necessarily show, but we actually wrote a demo for Ignite that does something very similar to the change control. It's very cool. It ties Azure, Power BI, and Yammer together. But again, I don't have a ton of time, but because we want to get to the demos here. But that's what I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That's great. All right, let's see. Yeah, cool. All right, so how we're going to structure the deep dive is I kind of want to go over a simple agenda. I'm really flexible about what we see and do. So the things that I have in mind that I want to cover, and I've introduced myself real quick. My name is Brian Davis. I work at Yammer. I'm an engineer. I've had a couple of different roles at Yammer that included being customer-facing roles and post-sales deals using the API and other integrations. So I'm pretty familiar with some of the questions that some of you might have. So we'll have a question and answer portion. Feel free to hit me up with any question you might have. If for some reason I cannot answer it due to time or due to I don't know the answer off the top of my head, I'll make sure I get your contact information and we'll follow up at some point. But here's how we have this structure. We're going to go over a list of different resources that Yammer provides for you all to learn more about our APIs and developer tools. I want to walk through a couple of samples and show you where some of these code resources live. So when you're going out and trying to figure out how to build these things, you don't have to necessarily start from a blank slate. And finally, I want to give maybe 15 minutes or more towards just general questions that you all may have about our API. So let's get started. If you want, you can kind of like go along if you're signed into Yammer. I'm going to go through the steps that it takes to create an application. If you want to do that at the same time, I'll try to go not too fast so you can kind of keep along. But the first thing I always like to talk about is, should you even build it? And what I mean by that is, oftentimes when I work with clients, they would want to like recreate Yammer in their own way inside of some SharePoint page or some other intranet portal. And what I always would tell people is it's really hard to build a Yammer client. We know that. So one of the greatest things that we give out is our embed tool. And I'll go over and show you some resources that we have for embed. And that's the easiest way, I think, to integrate with Yammer. We have this great feed that you can plug into anywhere that supports HTML and JavaScript. It's very fast to get up and running, and you can even do some dynamic scripting with it as well. So if you're getting requirements from clients or from other customers, make sure you realize we have these things for you. It may not do everything right away that you may need, but it'll get you like 90% of the way there very quickly. And then embed, really, like I said, is very simplistic in terms of getting it going. It's a reference to a JavaScript file that we provide, and then basically a script of what the feed might look like. And we even have a nifty place on the internet you can go and check out and configure these sort of switches on your own and get a working example. And I will show that today as well. Some of the resources we have are listed up here. I'm going to actually go through and show you, as Ryan and Christina mentioned, we recently redesigned our developer page, and it has a bunch of new features and functionality that I'd like to show you while we're here today. Just some like general hints and things you should know kind of going into it is, and I noticed like in the Trek example, I think they did this as well, is whenever you create an application, that, especially that posts to a Yammer, into Yammer itself, try to tie that application to a service user. So some other user that's not tied to a person, in case that person moves on or they want to change rules, that is not tied to one individual's. So oftentimes it's a matter of just creating a Yammer account, like service at yammer.com or some other easy identifiable name, and that way it makes your life a little bit easier in the long run. We also have rate limits for our APIs. Just make sure you're aware of what those are. They're documented on our developer page, and I'll kind of show you where those exist. And that's just so we don't get overloaded with tons of requests. So it's a matter of building in maybe a sleep or some other mechanism to make sure you don't hit that rate limit. And finally, you know, registering your app is super easy. It'll take only a few minutes to get started, and we're going to do that today as well. All right, so with that said, I'm going to actually move over to my computer and kind of show you some of the resources we have. All right, so here is our recently redesigned developer page. And here we have a ton of resources to help you get you started. So when I go in here, things I like to point out is we have a ton of different areas to sort of read and learn about our API and our SDKs. Some of the things up here are very useful. The authentication is a great way to get started if you're not familiar with our OAuth flows. We have both client and server flows in case you need to have it run from JavaScript locally or from a server-side application. And all those things are covered here. Again, one of the nice things is we just give you a snippet of code to get started, and you can just literally get it up and running within minutes. Like I mentioned before, we have rate limits, and I'll kind of click over here and pull those up. And they're all documented here. Again, just make sure when you're designing an application, if you're polling an endpoint, just to be aware that these exist. and to sort of build around them. Also, recently with this redesign of our developer page, we actually have a working API example for each one of these endpoints. So if you were to go into, let's say, users current, not only do we have that API endpoint documented, but at the bottom we actually have a try it out feature. This uses our OAuth flow to actually like build an app within this developer page. So here I can do something as simple as try it. It'll go hit this endpoint and return the necessary data. So it's a great way, if you are not familiar with using our API, to go in and see what information comes back on any one of these endpoints. It gets out of the business of having to do like manually pulling out a token or something. Or if you even wanted for your sample app just to have a quick token to get started, on all those pages, this little key here, you click on it, there's your token. Makes it simple to get started right away using our APIs. Another thing I wanted to point out that we have the ability to, and Ryan mentioned this, is that verified admins have a few more functionality in terms of API calls. One of the ones we have a lot of developers ask about is our impersonation endpoint. So one of the things you're able to do with a verified admin token is create other tokens on behalf of users. And that's something we have documented over here. That's pretty useful if you're building something in your intranet portal and you want to have some sort of mechanism where people aren't always signing into your application. You can build something on the server side to know when someone comes to that page, you can look up their user account, find who they are, and do this process to grab an OAuth token for that user and get started right away. The other thing I wanted to show as well is we have documentation on our Yammer embed here as well as on how to get started with that. This includes sample scripts inside of here that you can use to get started right away. Also, while we're here, we have this right here, which is our Yammer configuration page. And the URL, and it's a bit small, and we'll make sure it gets added to the slide if it's not there. It's yammer.com/widget/configure. And what this gives you, and my user's already signed in, is an example of what a Yammer feed might look like. And using this tool over here, you can sort of customize it and say, okay, what kind of feed do I want to show, and kind of see what the different options are. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch over to an Open Graph feed for this network. And apply my changes. And live demos, so it worked. Not only do we have this here where I can get started right away, I can say, hi there. I can post a message. But also, you'll notice at the bottom here, the configuration code has been updated to match now the feed that I've designed. Again, this is a really simple way to get up and running to kind of see what some of the possibilities exist, as well as some of the different features that you can add for a Yammer feed. The other thing we have listed on our developer site is our various SDKs. So as Ryan mentioned, we have our JavaScript SDK, which is probably the most popular because it's something you can easily embed into almost any place out there. If it supports HTML and JavaScript, you can run our JavaScript SDK. We also have a Ruby SDK, a Python SDK, an iOS and .NET SDK, and a Windows Phone SDK. And those are nice, too, if you're building an application. You can quickly go through the OAuth flow, and we have samples to get you started with that and start integrating Yammer into not only web apps, but also mobile apps as well. And those will have different documentation on those. And again, all these different SDKs have examples to help you get started right away using our API. The other thing we have documented on here, too, as well, is our data export API. And again, this is a verified-only API. And a lot of our customers, how they use this is not only to just pull their data out and have it for retention purposes, but also if they're doing anything with compliance or keyword monitoring or those sort of things, they can download that data, ship it off to the other third-party tool, and have them run all the necessary reports and compliance measures. And that's, again, a great way to sort of make sure that you can adhere to any rules and regulations your company has and use Yammer. We have also listed here a sample shell script for companies who want to get started using like an incremental daily export. So it does a whole data export, and then every day on a cycle cron job will update and pull down the latest data export for you. So get you off the ground running right away using our data export API. And with that, I'm going to kind of transition a little bit to another place we have, which is our GitHub page. This is just another resource for you all. So we have a GitHub page where we have various open source technologies that we've released for the public. The ones I think that this audience will find interesting are ones that deal with our APIs. So we have, for instance, a PowerShell one I just pushed this morning. If you ever raise your hand if you use PowerShell. Okay. It's a great language. One of the most frustrating things, who's done OAuth 2 before? Okay, who's done OAuth 2 where you do it manually, where you put the URL in, you do the thing, you switch the code? Yeah, it's crazy. So very, very simple script that I wrote to sort of, you plug in your client ID, your client secret, and it launches Internet Explorer. It does the whole OAuth 2 dance for you, and then you get returned a token, and also the token for all external networks that user has as well. So just another example to sort of quickly get up and running to show you some of the power and flexibility of using our APIs. The other one that I just added for this conference is, has anyone here used a Postman REST client before? A few people? Really awesome tool if you're doing any API exploration. You kind of want to have sample calls. You want to use it as a reference. It's a great little application that's free that you can sort of store large collections of APIs. What I want to show you real quick is what this looks like. Is I have my Yammer Postman right here. And what's nice about it is what I have on there that I uploaded today is just a collection of a lot of our APIs and different examples of them. Okay? So that would basically, you could import that file and then go in here and click and see examples of our API calls categorized by sort of category. And again, just another resource for you all to have today to sort of explore API, see what you get back, kind of mess around with the functionality. One of the nice things is you can, I've gone ahead and parameterized a lot of these endpoints. So you simply, when you download it, you provide those inside of this environmental file. So I can go in here and I can say, my user is this token. You plug your token in, and basically you can start making API calls without having to do a lot of the rinse and repeat things that you do with OAuth headers tokens. And again, we have a large collection of ones to help you get started, and also multiple variations. So like creating a message, creating an announcement, creating a message with an open graph object. So just, again, lots of good resources for you all to get started using our API. And that's something you can download today, and it's a great tool. The other thing we've done is we have a few full-on applications that we've open sourced. So one that's most popular is called Skidoo. And Skidoo is a event coordination software. So basically you can say, we've all had this problem, like users get together and they're like, oh, we got to schedule some event. And how do we get people to agree on a time? So this is a neat little application that runs on the web where you can sort of organize a time. It creates a poll. People vote on it. And then by consensus, we find the best time to run that event. So this is an application that a third-party service built for us, and we open sourced it so you could see all the various pieces of how it works. This is a particularly good example for development purposes because it uses not only our server-side OAuth 2 flow, but also uses our JavaScript SDK. And I'll just walk through this a little bit so you can see exactly how it works. So in this application, I'm going to go ahead and I've already signed in. We can see here they are using OAuth 2 to go through the user flow and then create a user in this application to save records to. Like all your existing polls, all the ones you vote on, will roll up to this user under like my events. And let's say I'll make a new event right now. Company picnic. Tomorrow sounds great. We'll do 11. And I'll create the event. So the next part is like, okay, so who are we going to invite to this event? Now this screen right here is using our JavaScript SDK to do two things. One is I type in who do I want to invite to this event, so I'll type in Brian. It uses our autocomplete API to return things that match within our network. So that includes users and groups in this example. So I can say, you know what, I need to invite Brian Davis. Click on that. You can see it adds them to the invited people. And you know what, I should invite sales. And now we have the Yammer group there as well. When I hit invite, it's also using our API to post a message to that Yammer network. So actually, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to my IT group. And refresh. Live demos. There we go. Sales, there we go. So again, it posts to that network. It has a link back to the poll, so anyone in that sales group can then see it. Also, that user that I added would get a private message inviting them to vote on that poll as well. That app is completely open source, and you can see the source code for it. Let me pull it up. With instructions on how to get started as well. So it has how to get started with that application as well. This is written on Ruby on Rails, but we also have examples of applications built in Java, JavaScript SDK, and a few others as well. So you have demos and things up here for you. We are also adding a lot of stuff to this repository as we find examples for it. Kind of along those lines, I kind of want to talk very briefly about some of the examples that we use internally at Yammer itself. So it was great to see Trek present some of their use cases, because that's how a lot of times we build applications using our own public API for Yammer. So the examples I'm going to show you is we use GitHub for our code changes, so all our repositories, and we were looking for a way to make sure that when someone's making a change to our source code, that we get lots of eyes on those changes. So we built an application called Hubby that if someone makes a pull request inside of our GitHub repository for a repository, that it posts to Yammer as a pull request and mentions the person who made that request, and then also that person could tag other users. So it's a great way for as developers to get people to easily see some of the changes we're making in our own product and have those discussions live inside of GitHub and also inside of Yammer. So you'll see here it posts, it gives some information about the kinds of change that's happening, and also like it'll carry the conversations that are happening in that GitHub repository back over to Yammer, so people who are not in GitHub right now can see the comments about that pull request, as well as some of the changes, like if someone closed it, do they merge it, and those sort of things. We also have a concept of a bot that watches various feeds, much like the Trek examples. So we have a bug reports. And one of the things that I think makes Yammer great is the frictionness of it. So you can go into somewhere, you can easily make a post, and then what's nice is we have these tools where we built a QA bot. So if someone posts what they think is a bug, it'll respond back and also PM someone assigned to that case to follow up with that bug. We also have things where we can say, like, hey, you should file a bug yourself. And so like we can sort of help people like solve their own problems sometimes too by just having something like this. Our IT team also uses a very similar concept where people post into an IT report, and we'll have a bot create an MS ticket and coordinate that with that Yammer thread as well. It's really nice. Some of the things that people get out of that is that they don't have to worry about trying to coordinate, fill out a complicated form with all this stuff. They just post somewhere, and then something else follows up. And it makes it really easy to sort of keep track of all these things. The other resource that I want to show you is we have Stack Overflow. If you have questions or about how to use our API, we recommend people post these questions to Stack Overflow with a hashtag Yammer. That allows you to post questions and have people from the community. We have engineers that monitor this every once in a while and go in and answer the questions themselves. If you're working with a customer and they have a question about how they use the resource, or they think that they found a bug, you can always also have those clients, if they have Premier, open up a support ticket, and we'll route those accordingly. Okay, so let me go back here. The next thing I want to quickly show you is how to create an application. And then I'm looking at the time, and I want to sort of get into questions, okay? So anyone can go in and say, client applications. So the URL to get started is your yammer.com/create_applications, and that brings you to the screen to actually create an application for Yammer for your network. The process is you'll just register a new application, fill out this form. Well, I won't fill this out in front of you. I'll pull up an existing one. We have a few basic requirements that you have to put in information for us for and agree to our terms. But then once that's created, what you get is you get the client ID and client secret, which we need to use for the OAuth 2 flow, the redirect for a server-side application, so we know where to redirect to do the callback. And then also from there, you can also set up your app directory information. So if you're publishing this to your local directory or submitting this to become a globalized app, as Ryan went over, you can have artwork, you have great descriptions, support URLs, all the things that your users might need for when they're setting up an application. We also have Open Graph activities that you can customize. So out of the box, we support a number of basic Open Graph activities. So create, update, those sort of verbs. But if you have a specific application where if you're building like a ticket system and you want to, instead of saying like updated, you want to say submitted a ticket, we have the ability for you to create your own Open Graph object types and action types. So you can say, Brian created a support ticket, Brian deleted a support ticket, rather than having just to use our out-of-the-box verbs and actions. And then that's as simple as it is to actually make, oh, sorry, do I have a question? Yeah, you know, we can go right over to the Q&A. I was kind of finished up with the, so go ahead, we'll do questions right now. And you're first, you're on the spot. You started this, buddy. Yes, sir. So the question basically is, okay, we have Delve, which uses the Office graph, and then we have Yammer that uses Open Graph. How are those related? Are they going to play nicely with each other in the future? And the answer is yes. So Open Graph is actually a pretty standardized format. It's something Facebook invented. It has a very simple concept. You have an actor, you have an action, and you have an object. So those things we will send in regardless. So like how this will work with the Office graph is we'll be sending those things to it, and they'll be able to consume it. The format doesn't change whether you send your own customized version of that or not, because it's still going to be actor, action, object, no matter what.
Right. I guess I'm just concerned about this custom object type, so what do we call it? I guess we're not so sure whether we could migrate that.
So I don't think you'd have to migrate any of this data. It'd still be here. It's just going to be like a place where we send these events to the Office graph. And then that Office graph other applications can plug into that as well. And that's what we're doing right now. So if you go to Delve and you see some of the Yammer things where actions and things come up, that's because we're sending these things already, these signals already to Delve through the Office graph. So I don't think the concern of like collisions or not showing up right or like configuration stuff, I don't think that's going to be the case. So this will still be the same when we extend that even more. Yes, sir, in the back. Excellent, perfect. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir. So I think, okay, so to summarize the question is, can we import user profile data? There's a couple ways you could do that. So yes, you can do that through the Yammer REST API, which is not the most efficient way because it's sending one request over and over again. We do have a tool called Yammer Directory Sync. And what it does is it talks to your local AD and sends over and creates the users as well as brings over the profile information from your Active Directory into Yammer. It doesn't include photos. That's something we don't currently support as a way to like update photos. But let's talk after this and see if we can get some more information from you about that. But yeah, that would be the way that I would do it. As I wouldn't use the REST API for that. I use Yammer Directory Sync to do all that. Yes, sir. I think the answer right now is it's not that I know of. It's something we just. Yeah, I think like long term, like we're trying to get as many people to use the O365 auth as well, and we get a lot of benefits from doing that. But again, I can go back and I can follow up with our product team if that's something they're interested in exposing. Mm-hmm.
This is the one that you can. And so this is a good chance for you to use your non-enterprise photo.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, just in our sign-up flow, when people sign up, they have the opportunity to upload a photo. I'll go back and talk with our product team. I'm sure it's something they've thought about in terms of like the O365, and also bring up like, do we ever plan to do it on a normal REST API? Right now, we don't have that set up to do that, but I can certainly bring that question to our product team. Yes, sir.
What about the rest of the profile field synchronization with O365? So one of the things we see is our users are starting to get confused. They've got profile information in an on-premise environment. They've got profile information in O365, and they've got profile information in Yammer, and they're having to update skills and interests and pictures and everything in 3 different locations.
So you can absolutely, like we have a number, and I can't remember off the top of my head, of all the profile data we can sync with our Yammer Directory Sync. I worked at the client at one point where they had a little bit more information that we could get in just with our directory sync. So they ended up going with using our REST API, which is a little bit less efficient, but they would just rate limit themselves. They did a huge job over a weekend to do like tens of thousands of users to move data from their SharePoint to Yammer and make sure that those start off in a nice place. So there's a way to do it. If
But then they diverge. Is there any plan to keep them with a universal profile, if you will?
I think that once we get everyone sort of like the identity completely mapped to O365, we'll get a lot of those benefits as well. And that's one of the advantages, one of the reasons we're trying to do those things and also to be a part of Office 365 groups is to sort of have the synchronization sort of take place. So I guess the short answer is there's a possibility to do this sort of stuff right now, either using our Yammer directory sync tool or using our REST APIs, or in the future, I imagine those things will come together quite nicely with O365 profiles. Yes, sir. Yeah, so the question was, when you put in a URL into Yammer, the web client, or to our embed publisher, we try to get metadata on that URL using a service called Embedly. So it works great. You put in like CNN.com, you're going to get back nice, neat metadata that includes the description, the image. You put in a link to your PowerPoint that's listed on SharePoint, and you get a sign-in link. And that's simply because the service is trying to reach that document. It obviously cannot authorize against it, so it gets the metadata for the sign-in page. The nice thing is there's actually a way to, if you know the information for that document, you can actually seed that into the Open Graph object. So let me pull up a link, and I'll show you what that looks like. So on our developer page, we have Open Graph. And I believe we'll go to sample activities. And I'll kind of show you what this looks like. I'll zoom in as well. So you can create, when I said that you have like the actor object and the action, with the object you can give it the information you have on it, like a metadata. I want to say a year or two ago when they first came out with the O365 web apps where you can embed sample applications. I built like a little Yammer Open Graph feed with that. And basically, to get around having a sign-in link, you just seed that data with the metadata that you know about it. Yeah, so like if you have, if there's somewhere that has that metadata, like either on the page, like so for one client, what we did was they had a blog where they wanted the CEO to like paste comments in and have feedback be in a Yammer thread around that. That was on a SharePoint site where we basically seeded that page. It would put into the actual HTML of that page the meta description. So it would be like, it would just grab the information from the page from inside of the embed feed. So you do have to have some way to get that information, but you can programmatically go into like an embed feed and say like use this variable name inside of this Open Graph thing, and it'll pull that in, rather than trying to reach out to our Embedly service and return that. And that's nice too because you can customize like the image you put in there, the description, and all the nice stuff that goes along with that. Yes, sir.
My company, we've used the Open Graph on our intranet, but I was wondering if there's any way to get like some sort of analytics around the Open Graph objects to see like how many people have liked it, how many comments have been made around that, how many people have followed it, that sort of thing.
I believe some of that stuff is not super exposed in some of our APIs. It's really easy to get to. That's something we could definitely like look about seeing about documenting. We've heard that before. Perhaps before you leave today, let me just get your contact card and I'll follow up with that. So the question was, sorry, I didn't repeat that, is when you have a feed that's Open Graph object, you turn up all these great conversations about that object. Is there a way to sort of find analytics behind how many people have liked that object, how many people have followed that object? I don't know where that is right now in our API, but I don't think we expose that right now as a supported functionality, but I could find out about getting that for developers if it's something you might find useful. So I'll follow up with you after this.
Do you split the likes, though, from liking from the embed tag on a page and liking from the actual Yammer application? Would we be able to know the difference of the two?
So the question is there a difference between liking the message versus liking the object? I believe those are different. that kind of goes back to the questions. I don't know if we give that information out for developers to tap into, but I think that's something, if it's easy enough to do and we can say it's publicly supported, I'll find out if we can do that. But they are kind of different. It's like if you can follow an object, you can like an object, and that's a different kind of like than liking a message. Oh, yes, sir. So the question is, the scenario, I go to a page. If I'm not signed into Yammer already, I might get a blue login page to sign in. I might then have to SSO into that. People want a little bit more seamless sort of, I go to a page, it just works. It's kind of what you're describing.
Yeah, but you do it on behalf, as a verified admin on behalf of the
So
user.
the way that I think that you could do that is on your server side, and you'd want this to be server side, so don't see the tokens, is you have your verified admin token. User comes in. If there's a way you can scrape and get their email address, like if you know when they're there, okay? So you get their email address, you call the impersonation endpoint, you then get a token returned, and then maybe at that point you know you have a token for that user, then you can dynamically load the embed feed, and it should pick up that that user is logged in with that token. It sounds like that may be something worth adding to our sample scripts. We've heard it a couple of times, and I'll follow up with that. Yeah. We still have a SharePoint 2010 web part for on-prem, and it's going away. I think the end of life is like a year from now, or around then. But that's sort of what it does. Is it behind the scenes does that impersonation? Yeah. But yeah, it's a great way to do like a more seamless process. So I'll even try to follow up and post to our GitHub maybe like a terrible example that's using like JavaScript, and you should not do it on JavaScript. But yeah, that's how I would think about doing that. Any other questions? Let's see. We have like 2 minutes left. We have, I think, 5 T-shirts. We have not devised a plan on how to distribute those 5 T-shirts. There's more than 5 people here. So, I have not looked at the sizes. Do you want to?
Large and extra large?
Yeah, these look pretty big. Again, if you I'll probably be around in this area for another half an hour or so before I run back to my hotel. If you think of something else, you want to drop your contact information. There's a couple people I wanted to follow up with, just to make sure that I get back to some other question you may have had. Feel free to come see me again. Thank you so much for coming in today. I hope you got something out of this.